إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, we begin by praising Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We send peace and blessings upon the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon his companions, and upon all those who have treaded in their footsteps of righteousness and piety. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people who sincerely love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people who sincerely love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his deen. Ameen. Dear brothers and sisters, to be a person who loves Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is without doubt an integral aspect of our deen. When a person wishes to enter into Islam and become a Muslim, one of the first things they have to say is the kalima. And we know that there are two parts to the kalima. They announce their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and at the same time, immediately after that, they declare that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Muhammad is the last and final messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But with that being said, a part of that is also having love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A person cannot say, I believe that Muhammad is the last and final messenger. A person cannot say that I believe Muhammad is the best of creation, yet have no love for the Prophet ﷺ. In order to be a Muslim, a person must not only love but also express their love for Rasulullah ﷺ. In a hadith narrated by Anas radiallahu anhu, and this hadith is recorded by both Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, rahmatullahi alayhi. The hadith says, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "La yu'minu ahadukum hatta akuna habba ilayh." That none of you shall be true and complete believers. None of you should have, or none of you can attain full iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until I become more beloved, the most beloved, even more beloved min walidihi, than a person's parents, wa waladi, than their own children, وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ, and all of the entirety of mankind, of humanity. This is a condition, a prerequisite, in order for a person to be a true Muslim. They have to have not only belief in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What do we mean by having love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? We'll get to that. But in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he's saying that وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ, that to have love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than anyone else. We have to one thing we have to make very clear is it's very difficult to have love for someone we've really never interacted with, someone we've really never seen. And that's the situation and the case with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. That the Sahaba, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all the prophets, even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are, we've never met them in person. We've never had a chance to interact with them. Our love for them is somewhat theoretical, as opposed to our love for our parents. A child is born with that innate natural love and inclination towards their parents. That's natural. That's something that you don't need to teach someone. They automatically love their parents. Likewise, when it comes to parents and their love for their children, it's natural. It comes automatically. You don't have to teach a parent, this is what you need to, that you have to love your child. Likewise, when it comes to relatives and family, that love is natural, right? So there is that one sense of natural love. In the hadith, however, it's not talking about that natural love, right? Because that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us that we're going to love our parents more than we love anyone else. What the hadith is speaking about is the way we love, how we love. A person can love their parents, but sometimes we need to teach people how to love their parents, right? If someone says, I love my parents so much, yet they disobey their parents, they don't listen to their parents, they don't visit their parents, they don't communicate and interact with their parents. They can say as much as they want, I love my parents. But what you're doing, your actions, it's showing otherwise. So we need to teach that individual how to love. The love is there, but we just have to show them how to love. Likewise, a parent may say, I love my kids. But sometimes parents need to be taught how to express their love. If a parent says, I love my kids so much that anytime they want candy, I'll give it to them because I love them. Right? That you're not really loving your kids. You're harming your kids if that's what you're doing. That every time they want something, you give it to them, you're spoiling them. So sometimes parents need to be taught how to love. So when we look at this hadith, what the hadith is saying is not speaking about the natural love we have for our parents versus the love that we have for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rather, what the hadith is focusing on is how to love. How do we love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than we love our parents, more than we love our children, and more than we love everyone else? And this is what the hadith is focusing on, and this is what we need to understand very, very clearly. That for us to love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than our parents, naturally it's not possible. It's pretty impossible, right? One or two people may have that sort of deep love for the Prophet ﷺ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with that. But for the general public, for the common person, naturally, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us is we're going to have love for our parents. We're going to have love for our children, much more than we have love for the Prophet ﷺ. So what the hadith is speaking about is how, not the what, but the how. How do we love Rasulullah ﷺ more than we love our parents, more than we love our children and the rest of mankind? So this is what it boils down to. When it comes to loving the Prophet ﷺ, and this hadith in particular, the first thing we want to make clear is that we take the word, the teachings, and the lifestyle of Rasulullah ﷺ over everything else and over everyone else. This is how we love the Prophet more than our parents, more than our children, and more than in the entirety of mankind. That when it comes to the word of Rasulullah ﷺ versus the word of someone else, we give preference to Rasulullah ﷺ. We give preference to his way of life. We give preference to his actions and what Rasulullah ﷺ wanted from us. This is what it means to love Rasulullah ﷺ more than loving one's parents. If on one end, Rasulullah ﷺ is, the practice of Rasulullah ﷺ is to do a certain thing, whereas our parents or our children are encouraging us or telling us to do the exact opposite, this is where a test of faith and a test of love for Rasulullah ﷺ comes into action. So it's not about saying, I love my parents or I love the Prophet ﷺ. It's about how do we love. And this is where it comes into action. And this is what the hadith is saying. That we have to love Rasulullah ﷺ and we have to express our love more than our parents, our children, and everyone else in the situation where if there's any sort of conflict, and there will be many instances where there is this sort of conflict, and sometimes this conflict may be between ourselves and the Prophet ﷺ himself. At times it may be that we tend to love ourselves more than we love the Prophet. It may be that the Prophet ﷺ is asking us to do something this way, yet our nafs, our desire, wants us to do something the other way. Right? Naturally, we love ourselves and we want to take care of ourselves. That's us as human beings. But it goes back to the question again. How do we love? How do we need to love the Prophet more than ourselves? By giving the Prophet preference over ourselves. That we may want to do a certain thing, which is completely against the teachings of Rasulullah ﷺ. This is where we need to put ourselves down and obey Rasulullah ﷺ, because this is what it means to love the Prophet ﷺ. So how exactly do we build and increase this love for the Prophet? You ask any Muslim that has any sort of concern for the deen, do you love the Prophet? They'll say, of course we love the Prophet. And you ask them, do you love the Prophet ﷺ more than you love yourself, your parents, and so on and so forth? And they'll say, of course we do. And you ask the Muslims that, are you willing to give your life up for the Prophet? And we'll all say, inshallah, yes, we are. So that's there. How do we get to a point where we can increase our love, number one? And number two, how can we get to a point where we actually say what we mean? That during those difficult situations where we have to make the decision between choosing the Prophet and choosing ourselves or our parents or our children, that we actually choose the Prophet ﷺ. That's what it boils down to. So the first thing a person needs to understand is the love of Rasulullah ﷺ is directly tied with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The stronger a person's iman, the stronger a person's belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the stronger love and obedience to the Prophet ﷺ that person will have. Right? They're both related. Because if a person loves Allah, if a person understands and believes in Allah sincerely, then they will know, or they'll understand and they'll admit that in order for me to gain the love and the acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the path I need to take is the path of the Prophet ﷺ. So automatically that will come. So the first step to building a person's love for Allah for Rasulullah ﷺ is to increase our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and increase our iman for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second action that we can take, or let's put it like this. There's 5 things we're going to go over today as to how we can increase our love for Rasulullah ﷺ. The first 4 are internal, right? The first 4 are internal. They are related to our spirituality and our mindset. And the last item is manifest into action. It's something that we can take action and it's practical, right? But there's 5 things altogether. So the first thing is to increase our iman. By increasing our iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, automatically our love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will increase. The second is to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the best of creation. And this is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrated by Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu. He says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنا سيد ولد آدم يوم القيامة وأول من يشق عن القبر وأول شافع وأول مشفع. This hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu and recorded by Imam Muslim rahmatullahi alayhi. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that I am the leader of the children of Adam on the Day of Judgment. Meaning on the Day of Judgment, all of humanity will be following Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be the leader on the Day of Judgment. وَأَوَّلُ مَنْ يُنْشَقُ عَنْهُ الْقَبْرِ. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's grave will be the first grave to split open on the Day of Judgment, before the Day of Judgment, after all of humanity has passed away, when everyone is in their graves. The first grave to be split and resurrected is the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, giving Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that preference. وَأَوَّلُ شَافِعٍ. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be the first person to intercede to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the Day of Judgment, with all this chaos going on, when everyone is completely focused on themselves. And this is the sign of the leader. The sign of the leader is, despite what's going on, they have a clear mind, they understand what needs to be done. And they are willing to not only worry about themselves, but also worry about everyone else on the team. So Rasulullah says, وَأَوَّلُ شَافِعٍ, that on the Day of Judgment, even when all the other great prophets, when Musa alayhi salam, when Isa alayhi salam, when Ibrahim alayhi salam, they will be concerned about themselves. On that day, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will still be concerned about humanity at large. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be awwalu shafi', the first person to intercede on behalf of humanity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everyone is getting anxious. Please start the day of reckoning, right? what leads up to the Day of Judgment is so chaotic that people cannot wait to just get it over with. You know, sometimes when you have a very difficult exam, and as you get closer and closer and closer to the time of the exam, you get very, very antsy and very anxious, and you say to yourself, I just wish it was over. I want it to be over already. That's how the Day of Judgment is. That before leading up to the Day of Judgment itself, it'll get so chaotic, people will just say, let's get it over with. Even if it's something terrible, let's just get it over with. I'm tired of waiting. You know, waiting sometimes is much more difficult than the actual thing itself. So Rasulullah ﷺ at that point will be the first person to intercede. And he says, وَأَوَّلُ مُشْفَعْ. He says, and I will be the first person whose intercession is accepted. So not only will he be the first person to intercede on behalf of humanity, but also his intercession will be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will start the process of the Day of Judgment, of reckoning. What we learn from this hadith is Rasulullah ﷺ is the most beloved creation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if a person has iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they understand that Rasulullah ﷺ is the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then naturally the most logical thing to do is love Rasulullah ﷺ as well. So the second mind shift, or the mindset that a person needs to develop, is to understand that Rasulullah ﷺ is the most beloved creation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore we need to also love Rasulullah ﷺ if we truly love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third thing that a person can do in order to increase their iman, in order to increase their love for Rasulullah ﷺ, is to understand the history and learn about Rasulullah ﷺ. Right? Many times we know the history of different things, of different individuals, right? Especially from the different countries we come from. We know about the different wars that took place and the different struggles that our countries went through, and all the political leaders, right? People have figures, statues, and pictures of their political leaders in their homes. You go to, I've met people where they have big pictures of the former president of, not the current president, but wherever, right? And they know the history of these people. They revere these people. They love these people. Why? Because they understood that they went through a lot of struggle to give them what they had. Right? This is what we need to do for Rasulullah ﷺ as well. We need to read up on the life of Rasulullah ﷺ and understand the different struggles Rasulullah ﷺ went through, the different hardships the Prophet went through, so that today you and I can enjoy the blessing of Islam, so that you and I can be Muslims today. That to take time to really understand the difficulties Rasulullah ﷺ went through. Right? It's one thing you just read, or it's one thing you just listen and hear a few lectures. But to really internalize that, to really try to empathize, is a different thing, right? Because when a person tries to empathize and a person has empathy, what they're trying to do is they are trying to garner those same emotions during that situation so that they can feel a little bit of what the Prophet went through. Right? It's just amazing when you read the life of Rasulullah ﷺ, that one man from the desert, right, at a time where there was no technology, there was none of this support system, right, from the middle of the desert, where the people that followed him were people that could not read, could not write. Many of them were illiterate. Many of them didn't have any social power, any social status. Yet they ended up becoming a superpower. They ended up becoming one of the most influential forces throughout history. If a person just thinks about that, how Rasulullah ﷺ, one man from the desert, became so influential that 1.7 billion people adhere to his teachings today, that in itself is mind-boggling. That in itself just goes to show what sort of dedication, sincerity, and love Rasulullah had when he was conveying this message of deen, when Rasulullah was conveying the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So this is the third way a person can increase their love for Rasulullah by actually reading the life of Rasulullah, learning and reading about the difficulties that he went through in order to establish this deen, the different sacrifices Rasulullah had to make. And there were a lot of sacrifices, right? It wasn't just he had to forego a couple of dollars here and there, or it was just, a few days of hunger. It was a 23-year struggle. From the very first day all the way till the end, there was some sort of struggle going on. There was some sort of difficulty. There was some sort of obstacle and hardship that was going on. And yet Rasulullah overcame all these difficulties, overcame all these obstacles, right? So when you read about that, when you understand what the Prophet really went through, and again, as we mentioned, it's not just reading. It's not just having it memorized. It's actually reading these things and taking the time to internalize it, to empathize with the Prophet ﷺ. That just trying to take us back to that time where, imagine a time without all this luxury. It's very difficult for us. But, if you've ever been for Hajj and you go to Mina, where you have no Wi-Fi access, right? And you live in these tents, right? 30 of us in one tent. You can get some sense of idea as to how difficult people lived back then, right? So that's the third thing a person can do in order to develop love and increase love for the Prophet ﷺ, by reading about his life and internalizing it and empathizing with the Prophet ﷺ. The fourth thing that a person can do in order to increase their love for Rasulullah ﷺ is by looking at the people that Rasulullah ﷺ influenced. To some extent or another, each and every single one of us has been influenced by Rasulullah ﷺ. The way we live our lives, the decisions we make, the things we do, all this we've been influenced by the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because from a very early age, we've been reading about the life of the Prophet ﷺ. From a very early age, we've read the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ. And these things have an effect on us. And they've influenced us. So all of us are influenced by Rasulullah ﷺ. What we're talking about are the people that were directly influenced by the Prophet ﷺ. We're talking about the people that lived in the company of Rasulullah ﷺ. The Sahaba, the companions. They were the people who saw the Prophet ﷺ day in and day out. They were the people that were living with the Prophet, that saw the Prophet ﷺ from the morning till the night, right? What sort of people that the Prophet ﷺ leave behind? Because a leader is recognized through the followers. If all your followers are all nutcases, if all your followers are, racist people, then you have to understand that the leader is, pretty much like that, because the leader will attract similar people, right? If all the people are against immigrants, against Muslims, and they're all, they can't read and write properly, they don't know any grammar, then you have to understand that the leader is a bit psychotic as well, right? When you look at the people Rasulullah ﷺ left behind, what sort of people did Rasulullah ﷺ leave behind? Look at the likes of Umar radiallahu anhu. He was the second Khalifa of Islam. He controlled over 1/3 of the known world at that time. Imagine a leader like that. And he was influenced, he was direct student, immediate student of Rasulullah ﷺ. You have people like Abu Bakr, Ali radiallahu anhu, Uthman radiallahu anhu, all these people, all the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. They were direct students and immediate students of the Prophet ﷺ. Look at their character. Look at their integrity. Look at their authenticity, their sincerity and honesty. They were directly influenced by Rasulullah ﷺ. Right? So if you want to understand the greatness of Rasulullah ﷺ, you need to truly understand the greatness of the Sahaba, because they loved the Prophet ﷺ enough to continue follow him even after he passed away. They were willing to give their lives for the Prophet ﷺ. Today we ask people, we ask ourselves that, are we willing to give our lives for the Prophet? And we'll say yes, right away. We'll give our lives for the Prophet ﷺ. But the Sahaba did more than that. They didn't just give their lives for the Prophet. They lived every second of their life. They lived every single second of their lives according to the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. And when it comes to consistency versus quantity, consistency always outweighs, right? Because consistency has quality in it, right? A person can say, I'll give my life for the Prophet ﷺ. It's a split-second decision. But when it comes to living our lives like the Prophet ﷺ, that's when it becomes difficult, because that becomes mundane. That becomes something routine. That's something you have to do every single day, and you don't know when it's going to end. That's what the Sahaba radiallahu anhum did. They not only gave their lives for the Prophet ﷺ, they lived their lives according to the Rasulullah ﷺ. We'll just share one hadith narrated by Anas radiallahu anhu. This is an incident which Anas radiallahu anhu he saw. He noted that right after Rasulullah ﷺ made Umrah, and he was shaving his head. After you make Umrah, you shave your head. So Rasulullah ﷺ was having his head shaved. And Anas radiallahu anhu, he says, لَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ يَحْلِقُهُ وَأَطَافَ بِهِ أَصْحَابُهُ فَمَا يُرِيدُونَ أَن تَقَعَ شَعْرَةٌ إِلَّا فِي يَدِ رَجُلٍ. Anas radiallahu anhu, he says that I saw the Prophet ﷺ and the barber, the person that was shaving the head of Rasulullah ﷺ. And he says, as he was shaving the head of Rasulullah ﷺ, you saw all the companions of the Prophet just circling around the Prophet, trying to collect the hair of Rasulullah ﷺ before it even touched the ground. Right? This is the immense sort of love they had for the Prophet. It wasn't just saying, I believe in the Prophet and that's it. These people had sincere love for the Prophet, right? And they were willing to give whatever they can for the Prophet ﷺ. So the fourth thing that we can do in order to increase our iman for the Prophet ﷺ is by realizing the sort of people Rasulullah ﷺ left behind. Because a leader is recognized through his followers, right? When a leader leaves behind a certain type of followers, then you have to understand that that leader was strong enough to produce those sort of followers, right? Now the last thing that we'll cover is one practical thing, right? In order to increase our love for the Prophet ﷺ. And that is through following the sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ, right? And what it really boils down to are the small things. It's really the small things that matter, because that's what we do on a daily basis. The things we do on a daily basis, the things that make up our habits, are eventually things that influence our decisions, right? There's a very good book that I read some time back called The Power of Habit. And one thing the author notes in that is that habits, as much as memory and reason, are the root of how we behave. We might not remember the experiences that created our habits, but once they are lodged within our brains, they influence how we act, often without realization. In other words, what the author is saying, after conducting a very lengthy study on how habits are developed, he says that habits, once they're formed, they have the power to influence our decisions, whether we realize it or not. At times we may tell ourselves that we're making a very logical, rational decision, that we know all the pros and cons, and based on that, we're making a logical decision. In reality, we're blinded to the fact that we're not as logical or rational or as unbiased as we may want to be. Our habits are always there influencing us. Our lifestyle, the way we've been brought up, are always things that are influencing our decision, right? So what it goes back to is when we follow the sunnah of Rasulullah, right? Even the minor, small sunnahs, right? The sunnahs that we say, whether you do it or not is fine. But the more sunnah that we can bring into our lives, the easier it will be to love the Prophet ﷺ. The easier it will be to live our lives according to the teachings of Rasulullah ﷺ and the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. just by doing these small sunnahs. So that's the last thing that a person can do, is to begin to develop and begin to practice all the sunnahs. And that's a goal every Muslim should have, that at one stage in our lives, we should get to the point where we are following all the sunnahs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, to a certain extent, that may not be possible, but if that's our goal and we get to 85% or 90% or 95%, that's better than saying, I'm not going to try it all. Right? So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to have true love and sincere love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to develop love for the Prophet and follow all his teachings and all his sunnah. Ameen. بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن المجيد ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. Dear brothers and sisters, we'd like to finish off today's khutbah by addressing what apparently seems like a very controversial issue, which is celebrating the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. In my opinion, at the end of the day, every one of us celebrates the birthday and the legacy of Rasulullah ﷺ. Whenever a person does something in accordance to the sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ, whenever a person does or practices the sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ, what they are doing is they are celebrating the legacy of Rasulullah ﷺ. They are celebrating the message which Rasulullah ﷺ delivered. Right? So in actuality, in reality, every single Muslim celebrates the message, the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? What it boils down to is the how, right? So like how we began, it's not about the actual love, it's how we love. If we say to ourselves that we're going to express our love in an incorrect method, or we're going to celebrate the legacy of the Prophet in an incorrect method, that's where it becomes an issue. That's where it becomes a problem. Because in actuality, all of us love the Prophet ﷺ. In reality, all of us celebrate the legacy of Rasulullah ﷺ. What it boils down to is how. How do we really love the Prophet? Are we just saying we love the Prophet, but we're not living our lives according to the way Rasulullah ﷺ has taught us? And are we saying we celebrate the legacy of the Prophet, yet our entire lives are contradictory to the way Rasulullah ﷺ taught us to live? So this is what it boils down to, that all of us are celebrating the legacy of the Prophet. But it's how do we do it? Every time we fulfill a sunnah, every time we practice a sunnah, every time we bring back a sunnah and revive a sunnah, what we are doing is we are preserving the sunnah. We are now part of history. Right? Every time we teach our children that this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we become part of history in the preservation of the sunnah. And automatically we are now celebrating. By celebrating meaning we are honoring the sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ. And that's what it really boils down to. That if a person really loves the Prophet ﷺ, if a person really wants to please the Prophet ﷺ, then the best thing they can do to celebrate his legacy is live their lives according to the Prophet ﷺ, right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to live our lives according to the Prophet ﷺ and do whatever we can to the best of our abilities. And there will obviously be times when it's difficult, but as long as we keep on trying and make our intention to live our lives one day to complete sunnah, inshallah Allah will reward us for that. Ameen. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه ولا تكفرون